Welcome back in to Buccaneers Total Access here. We had head coach Todd Bowles in the first half of the show. Now I am so excited to be joined by tight ends coach Justin Peelle. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I always love when we get a chance to talk to new coaches, especially let our fans get to know you guys who don't always talk a lot. So I know later in the show we'll definitely get into a little bit of your playing and coaching career as well. But for now, let's kind of get into this last game that happened a little bit. Just kind of overall takeaways from the game for you guys offensively at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there were some good things we did out there. Obviously, it was a very good defense. They've been, one of the top defenses for the last few years. So we did some good things. There was some stuff that I thought we left out there, and I think players will tell you the same things. But you could start to see the improvement. And
then I know when it's a skid like this, that the NFL is so tough of just the one game per week, and then when you get a few losses in a row, it can just feel so heavy at times when it's like, you guys know, like, hey, at any point this can turn around. What's the message you try to send of how to make sure you snap out of this and it doesn't become a continuous thing that lasts after the bye?
It's really for the bye. It's to get away and get some rest and come back refocused, re-energized. And really, it's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's just one day at a time, right? You just come in and you try to get better every day, and then you get to the game and you try to play better, and then you just, keep focused on the little things and just continue to work. When really, I know it's boring, but it's really one day at a time.
Yeah, the cliche for a reason.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I know for you guys, man, especially you have not been here before this year, but there had been several issues in terms of trying to get a touchdown early in games, and then, man, finally got that figured out of those first drives, getting touchdowns multiple games in a row. This was actually the first game you guys didn't get a touchdown in the first half, where I know you guys had done a great job of starting fast. What were some of the things that maybe they were doing well, or that wasn't working on our end to have a little bit slower start than we have been?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I thought the guys were ready, and it felt like everybody was energized to come out, and it just didn't execute, I guess, for lack of a better term. I mean, it wasn't really one person. It was just, different positions, different times, right? And then we just couldn't get in a rhythm early on. And that's really what it was, is we just couldn't get into a rhythm and we couldn't get going. So, I mean, it's hard, especially when you go against a good defense like that.
And I'm sure that Cade has now become quite a focal point of the defense in a lot of different ways, especially after, recent games of him being a huge weapon in the wake of losing Mike and Chris. We saw him get 5 catches early. Then after that, it seemed like they were able to slow him down a little bit. What went well early on to get him those catches, and then what maybe adjustments or things did they do that made it hard? Yeah,
I think it was just a case of the ball just didn't find him, right? And it's, he had the first down on, I think it was the third play of the game, and ran a nice route, and Baker was able to find him over the middle there. And then, a couple things here and there, but the ball just wasn't finding him for whatever reason. It wasn't, and again, I give credit to them, but the way that the game went down, and we just, I don't know, for whatever reason, we couldn't get him the ball.
What did you see from him overall, especially including some of those catches early in the game? If you were going to give one of those nice grades, I know you coaches love to give your position rooms. How did Cade do?
No, I thought he played hard, and like Cade always does. He plays hard and he does his job. He does what we ask him to do, and goes about it in the right way.
We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. What conversations did you have with Cade after Mike and Chris went down about maybe the way that his role would or would not change, or what this would mean for a guy like him in the wake of those injuries?
I really didn't have that conversation. It was really just continue to go about and play your game. I always tell him before every game, just go play your game. Just go be who you are, and whatever happens. But he does such a nice job of every day. He's consistent. He's got his routines, and he just approaches everything the same. And obviously losing those two was difficult, but it wasn't a, hey, we're gonna start doing this, and this. It was just, hey, go run the route that's called, block the block that block the run, or whatever it may be. Just go do your job, and then the ball started to find him, and then which was fun. It was fun to watch for him.
I know that, looking at these 3 games he had even before this one, he had at least 70 receiving yards 3 games in a row. Before that, it had only happened twice in his first 42 games with the Bucs. Also had at least 8 receptions in 3 straight games, which joined just Brock Bowers and Travis Kelce as the only tight ends with such a streak since Cade came into the league, and tied for the second longest streak of games with at least 8 receptions and 75 receiving yards by a tight end in NFL history, behind only Travis Kelce. That is some crazy stats for him of what this stretch of games has been like, and how he's emerged as this huge weapon in this offense, and especially for a guy like, I'm sure Baker is just like, thank you, I love you so much during this time. Tell me, in your mind, hearing those stats, what is it about this time and where Cade is at, what this offense is? Why have we seen this kind of an explosion from him lately?
Well, I mean, obviously the obvious is with Chris and Mike being down, but it really goes to his credit of he worked to get better, and working on his routes and the details of his routes, and when he's given the opportunity, making the most of that opportunity, and we did have to lean on the position a little bit more with those guys going down, and he stepped up and he made plays when given the chance.
I remember I had Liam Cohen on this show earlier this season, and it was before these numbers for Cade. And he said he'd actually apologized to Cade at one point, being like, man, I'm so sorry we haven't gotten you more involved. And man, it seems like he definitely took that apology to heart, that suddenly this was a big part of it. How do you remember seeing it where the way Liam did make such a concerted effort? What were some of the things that happened within this offense to let that happen?
Well, I think early on there were some injuries where Cade's role we had to adjust his role, so to speak. It was never. We were always going to try to involve him, so to speak, but then there was injuries, so his role adjusted early on, and then it just, he would make a play and then he'd make another play, and they're like, oh, we can try to do some more with him, and things like that. But it wasn't never not to. It just didn't happen, and it's I've coached guys where sometimes you could design plays for them and then they don't get it, and then you don't design anything for them and they end up with 5 or 6 catches. So it was really just kind of the circumstances.
And then he has all those catches with no gloves.
Yes, I know.
I know. You sound.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know how he does it. And it was funny because he cut his finger yesterday. He did something. It was something, but it was in a spot where, and I was looking. I was like, that's a lot.
Glove might have helped you.
No, it's I asked him out at one time, and he goes, I don't like them. And then, whenever he does have a drop, he goes, I've never dropped the ball because of the gloves. And which is probably true. It's just really a concentration thing. But he's just an old school. He's old school like that. And I don't know how I couldn't do it. My fingers still hurt, and I haven't played a game in 20 years. So
that's so crazy. And also, as you talk about him being old school, of course, also that he is a guy that now has been asked to do a lot of blocking as well. A lot of the other parts of the tight end that are the less glamorous, shall we say. How have you seen his blocking progress, and just both the mentality and mindset he has towards it, and then also just the actual X's and O's physical gifting abilities to do it?
Yeah, with a lot of these guys, he's only in his 3rd year, which I think sometimes we forget because he's played so much football in his first 3 years. But it's a process coming out of college to block, because a lot of them aren't asked to do it, and then the physical maturity or the maturity and the physical part of it, right, is you've got to kind of grow into that. And then he's always had the willingness. I remember because I interviewed him coming out of UW, and it was there. It's just, there's some technique stuff, and you've got to work the technique. You got to get stronger. And he's never turned it down, and he's been willing to do it. We just had to work on some technique things, and he's done a great job with it. And that was a lot of what we did in the off season. And he embraced it. He enjoys it. All those guys do, and so it's been fun to see that aspect of his game grow along with the pass catching stuff.
It's cool to hear that you were able to interview him and scout him back, with a different team, and then be able to reunite. What do you remember about what you had seen and learned about him in college that came across to you, and now that you were coming here, of like, oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I remember because it was when we weren't allowed to be on campus. I think it was one. I think it wasn't the COVID year, but it was the following year, whatever it may be. And you do a Zoom interview with him, and you just get to know people, right? And you could tell just by talking to him, he loves football. He's extremely intelligent. He's got a high IQ, but he's got a high football intelligence as well. Obviously, his background with his, I do believe it was his grandfather is a legendary high school coach out there in Washington. So you could tell it was just in it. And then just talking to him, the importance of the game and how much he loves it, and then the way then when I got here, you had heard about his work ethic through the the interview process, but then you get here and you witness it, and it's something special.
I feel like when I ask people about who Cade is and his personality, the statement I've heard multiple times is he is the nicest human I've ever met.
He is.
Yeah.
And it's
I love the slight annoyance. That also is in there every time, which I love that it's like, God, he really is so nice.
He is, and I try to have fun with him and needle him and prod him, and he just kind of looks at you and kind of gives you a laugh, and I'm just like, it's not even working. I can't even get you
make fun of you.
Yeah,
right?
no, he's a great individual, obviously, and he is one of the nicest people I know.
I love that. What is the dynamic like with him in the tight end room? There are a lot of different personalities you got in there.
There's a lot.
You've got a smorgasbord of people in there. what does that dynamic look like, and how does Cade's personality fit into that, and especially him being the leader of the group, being the, he's been the elder statesman since he was basically a kid himself coming in, which is crazy. So what does that dynamic look like?
No, it's a fun room, and I've always tried to keep, the rooms, you want to have fun. It's a family. It's everybody helps each other out, and you're all competing, and there's only X amount of you are going to be on the field at the same time, but it's got to be, we all help each other out, we all push each other, we all have some fun with it, we all make our jokes, and like you said, there's some personalities in that room, but and he just fits right in. I mean, he doesn't, the nice thing about Cade is, yes, he's had this success, and then he is the starter, but he acts like he's just one of the boys, and he doesn't have this arrogance about him, and he's always trying to help. He helps Dev and Payne, and him and Ko came in together, and so they've got their relationship, and so he's always helping people. And I think that aspect of him has kind of grown a little bit this year too, is that leadership part.
And then how about the chemistry with Baker? That we hear a lot about it when it comes to quarterbacks and wide receivers, but of course it's going to be the same thing with a tight end. And what does it take to build? Where do you see that chemistry play out in the game, of evidence of it, and where do you feel like they're at this point in terms of that kind of knowing each other?
They're in a good spot, and they you could see it out on the practice field, and they have dialogue, and it goes back to, I forget what game we were playing. It was a couple weeks ago. I think it was versus at Atlanta. It was a third down, and it was on our sideline, he threw an out route. It was right about plus 30, plus 40. And I was shocked that he threw it. And because we'd had it up, and it had never gone. And then, Cade comes over and said, "Were you surprised?" I go, "No, I kind of knew he was going to throw it." And then you watch the film, and Baker hits his back foot and rips it right there. So you could kind of tell that over time. I'm sure they've had I know they have conversations, but then just out on the practice field, and both of them are extremely intelligent, and they have that same football mind. So I do think they see the game the same way.
Interesting. And then how about Baker's leadership and the influence that's had on your room, offense overall, just what it's been like to watch that develop?
It's been fun. I've always admired Bake from afar. He got me a couple of times with my last team, which but he's always had that competitive spirit, and you can see that in the way he is with the guys, and the guys play for him. They enjoy that about him. That gunslinger. I mean, the play he makes yesterday with Bosa's, he's holding on to him, and he makes that play on fourth down. It's just there's no quitting the guy, and he's extremely competitive. He's sharp, and then he can relate to the guys. You see him joking with the offensive linemen and with the receivers, and with everybody. And so it's fun to watch, and it's fun to be around.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. We're brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. So let's talk a little bit more about Cade, just overall his potential and ceiling, where you see him going. Because like you mentioned, I mean, he is still so young.
Yeah, he is.
But he has a lot of football under his belt already to be that young. Where do you see him going, and the idea of who he could become over the course of his career?
It's a good question. It's really, when you talk about projecting the future, it's the first thing comes with the health, obviously. Assuming he stays healthy, he can do what he wants to do. He's like I said, his work ethic and his knowledge of the game has gotten him so far, and he's not the fastest guy, and he's not going to jump the highest, blah 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 blah. But the kid knows how to play football, and that's a very undervalued trait. I don't want to say undervalued, but it's like when you have football players last a long time, and if you just know how to play the game, which he does. I mean, he's got a long career ahead of him.
That's great. And what are the biggest things that you're working on with him at this point, the things that you are hoping to help him get there that you guys are focusing on?
All of it, really. I mean, there's nothing specific, and I'd never really say specifics because it's really between the player and I. But there's, you're always working on everything, right? Yeah. And I'll never forget, I coached a guy, and he just had an unbelievable year. And April 15th or whatever, the first day back in, he walks into my office and he's like, "All right, what are we getting better on in this area and this area?" And I was like, "Oh, that's the way you're supposed to do it." Yeah. And that's how, and Cade's that same way, and it's, I always ask him, "Okay, what do you want to work on today?" And he'll list off a couple things that we could do out at practice. So you're really working on everything. Obviously, with him being a little bit more in the pass game, we've done some stuff there, but he continued to work on, at the line of scrimmage. And it's really everything.
And then for him, do you guys have certain goals, numeric goals or production goals, or ways that you kind of measure some of the stuff that you give him?
Not really, because everybody else, some of the other players that I've coached have been that way. And the funny story is he had the mustache for a couple of games.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. What were our thoughts on that?
Yes.
That might be the edgiest thing he's ever done.
No doubt. No, but it was, and then he goes, I'm going to shave it. And I was like, well, you just cut. You
just cut a bunch of balls, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but we've lost. And he said it straight face and stone cold. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah, but he was
such sincere.
No, but it was true.
Yeah.
And it was like, he goes, but we haven't won. And he goes, I want to, that's more important. And it was like, it is the goal. And it was refreshing for him to say that. So
even when he's had the best games in his career.
No doubt. Yeah. And so with a guy like Cade, you can ask him, I highly doubt that he has ever put numbers down for a season goal.
How about we talk a little bit about the rest of your room as well? Tell me about Ko Keift and what he's meant to the team on and off the field.
Yeah, he brings the lighter side of it. Yeah. No, but he's awesome as well. His role is obviously limited, but he embraces it. I think he played 3 plays yesterday and did a really good job on all 3 of them, and asked the right question. He helps those other guys out. And obviously he's doing a good job on special teams, but he brings the lighter side of it when it's supposed to be, and then when it's time to work, he works. And him and Peille are, I don't want to say the edgier of the group, but they are the
bring the spice to the
yes,
food.
Yes, exactly. And but Ko's been great. He's since the day I got here, he's been awesome.
I feel like he has the most stereotypical blocking tight end personality of anyone I've ever met.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, we got the long hair mohawk.
Yeah.
We're in our garage and we got drafted.
I don't even know what he's doing with that right now. That's with that mullet he's got working on.
That's great.
No, he's great. He does. He embraces it, and Ko's very. He knows who he is, and that's okay. This is my job, and when it's my job, this is what I'm going to do.
We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. How about Payne Durham now, especially with kind of the opposite end of draft, a little bit more with the pass catching in mind. What have you learned about him and what he could bring?
He's got some toughness to him. He's got the physical part of it. Again, another extremely smart player. I've been very fortunate. That whole room is really, really smart, which is fun to coach. He is another one where we've kind of been working on his blocking a little bit more, and I thought he's made some strides. He had a couple good things yesterday. And just getting him, because he only played a year of high school and a couple of years, so he himself is still young in his football journey. So, but he's got the intensity, and he's like I said, he's fun to be around, and he's got a personality as well.
Yes, he does. I love that. What do you feel like? Is it the blocking that would basically be what would get him on the field a little bit more at this point?
Oh yeah, it's just the way that our offense runs, right?
Yeah.
We're for the most part we're going to be 11. We'll play in 12 when it works, and when we do, and he goes in there and he does his job he does a nice job with it. It's just, that's the offense we're in right now.
Yep. How about, what do you remember about scouting Devin Culp going into this year?
It was hard because I had to watch a lot of Washington, and having gone to Oregon, that's a little painful.
It probably speaks to the fact that you got some talented guys here that overcame the prejudice.
Yeah, no doubt. And don't worry, I'm glad I'm glad I didn't have to live through them last year when they were winning everything, and now it's split the yes.
Yeah,
no.
You came to the team that has the most Washington people. That's on you, man.
I know. They let me know about it, but in a couple weeks they're gonna know about it too.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
No, it's Dev has done a nice job. When you watch this film, he's not afraid to be physical. You put the ball in his hand, and he's a tough tackle. Smart kid. He's got a good passion for the game. So he was a bright person, or very good personality, lights up the room type of guy. And he was fun. He was fun to talk to.
I feel like I'm going to just be pouring salt in an open wound with this next question, but what is it about the Washington guys?
I don't know. I have yet to.
I had to ask you.
Don't trust me. There's some good back and forth in that room, and then obviously with Vita and
Greg and
then who's I'm missing one. Tryon and.
Yep.
I think that's it. That should be
enough.
enough.
Jalen McMillan.
Oh, J-Mac, that's right. I forgot.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they are. I'm surrounded.
They're more than 10% of our roster.
That's all right. I got Bucky here with me, so I got somebody.
That's
no,
fair.
they're it's obviously it's a good program. They've
look, You're like physically
it's
recoiling
hard. It's like,
this.
yeah, no, it's a good program. I remember Coach Peelle, who was a wide receiver coach at Oregon when I was there. A lot of those guys played for. But yeah, it's still Washington, but that's all right.
Which now, speaking of Bucky, I'll let you brag on
Yeah.
him. If I made you talk about Washington,
Yeah, it's just typical Oregon
I'm
player.
sure you had watched all of Bucky's college experience there. So tell me what it's been like to watch him get to come here and play so well.
It's fun. I mean, he another one. And again, I say all the Washington stuff jokingly, but Bucky is a great kid. I got to watch him a little bit. It's hard when you're on the East Coast watching the West Coast, but watched him a little bit. And then when he got here, he's done a nice job. He takes a lot of pride in what he does. He works hard. He studies at it. And it's been fun to watch him.
What are the biggest challenges for tight ends coming from college to the NFL? When you do have such a young room, what are the things that you see tend to be the biggest challenges, and what sets guys up to be able to make that transition successfully at that position?
Physically, it's the blocking on the field, because you're going against, guys that are in their, most of these kids coming out now, they're in the early 20s, some of them are even in their teens, but now you're coming out and you're going against, you're blocking, you're playing physical game against guys, mid or late 20s, whatever that. So that takes some time to get used to. The speed of the game takes some time to get used to. Everybody's fast in college. Usually the guys we bring in, they're the fast ones. They're the more athletic ones. Where now at this level, obviously everybody is. And then the off the field aspect of it, which probably is is the bigger hurdle, is the playbook's longer. The detail of what we do is longer. The days are longer, right? You're here all day. The season can get to be a grind. You got the 3 preseason games, and what are we at 7? So you're playing 20. Now a lot of these college kids are playing 20 as well, but it can be long, right? Yeah. I do believe every game in the NFL, there's very little separation in talent versus where in college you could play a game where you could take I don't want to say take a breather, but it's, you may be out at halftime or after the third quarter or, things like that. So just the overall intensity is the change for these guys.
All right, we're going to take one more break here on Buccaneers Total Access. We are talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. We'll be right back, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access. We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. Like I said earlier, I wanted to help fans get to know you a little bit as one of the new coaches this year. 10-year playing career, in addition to a pretty long coaching career now at this point as well. So for you, looking back at your playing career, what tends to stand out if you were to take people through your journey a bit of who you played for and also some of the awesome people you got to play with? There's some not too shabby teams in there.
No. So I was drafted by the University of Oregon to San Diego when the Chargers were still in San Diego. Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach, who was one of my favorite coaches to play for. And it was interesting because I came out, I was a pass-catching tight end is what they said, and then I realized early that I needed to figure out another way to stay on the field. So it did become blocking. I was there in San Diego for 4 years, played with a lot of really good players. Drew Brees, LT, Antonio Gates was a year behind me. So I was fortunate, the late Junior Seau. There's so many guys that really kind of raised me in this game that was with the Chargers. Then I left. I went to Miami for 2 years, coached Saban for a year, learned a lot under him, and then I went to Atlanta for 3 years. Mike Smith, then it was Matt Ryan was our quarterback, and it was Matt's rookie year, and then Tony Gonzalez came in. I think after year 1, so Tony came in after year 1, I believe. So I got to know him, got to watch him, and obviously one of the, if not the greatest, tight end of all time. And then after that, I finished up my last year in San Francisco under Coach Harbaugh, and there I was with Vernon Davis and Delaney Walker, who both had very good careers. So I was very fortunate to be around. Those are just the tight ends, but a lot of really Hall of Fame players, Hall of Fame coaches. So I was very blessed. I stayed healthy and was very fortunate.
How did being around players like that, especially at the tight end position, not only influence maybe the way you played the position, but then the way you have coached it?
Yeah, you look back I remember, things that Tony would say, and then how he would break down leverage or get on an edge, and the way he saw the game from the pass catching aspect of it. Antonio Gates was the same way. Obviously, Tone had his basketball background, and then you see somebody like Vernon Davis, who's just an absolute freak of an athlete. And I was like, well, I can't do that. So, but Vernon was. I mean, Vernon and Delaney were fun to be around in San Francisco. So I was very fortunate to be around a lot of good players. And then on the defensive side are the other offensive players that just watching, like Drew Brees and LT are the ones I always go back to. Just watch the way that they handled themselves and the way they approached it. Another one, Darren Sproles was the same way. I mean, Darren's like 5'2", and he was, he's a very possible Hall of Famer, but the way that those guys, their work ethic and the way they approached every day and how they took care of their body, how they trained, all those things, I was very fortunate to be around a lot of really good people.
It is not a guarantee that just because you had a good or a long playing career that you'll make a good coach. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like it was that made you good at this, and then what were some of the maybe hardest adjustments of going from playing to coaching?
The playing to coaching, the adjustment is the hours. And as a player, you never understood it until you're actually coaching, and then there are not enough hours in the day as a coach. But I always look at it like, because I know what they're going through. I know what they're going through, what they've been through, but I also know that you can push them to do more, because those are some of my best position coaches would tell me, this is going to be hard, but I know you can do it. And so you can push players, the right ones, you can push them to do more, and that's always that fine line of not asking them to do something that they physically can't do, but asking them to do something that's hard that you know that they can do.
I like that. We're talking to tight ends coach Justin Peelle. You said that you know where the players are coming from. Are you now, once you got into coaching, how long before you were like, oh, I see what my coaches were saying?
Absolutely.
I love
absolutely.
that. Did you immediately feel guilty about some of the things that you said or did
absolutely.
to coaches?
No, it's funny because every so often players will pull up one of my clips, and it's not good. It's like, it's everything I don't teach.
Don't
do that. Yeah. No, it's but it is. It's as long as you've got the right players that are trying to do things the right way, coaching is really not that hard as long as you're able to work with them.
And then not only did you play alongside some really talented people, you've coached a lot of really talented people in the tight end.
I've been very fortunate.
You've had some decent people there. I mean, Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert and Kyle Pitts and a bunch of these different guys. Mm-hmm. What has it been like for you getting to coach such talented people even before coming here, and the ways that it's influenced your coaching ability?
Well, it's been awesome, because it's good players make coaches look good, so to speak.
You're like, I'm a genius.
No, the two that would stand out would be Zach and Dallas. In that group in Philly, Zach came in my first year coaching, we drafted Zach, and so him and I kind of, like, I learned how to coach and he learned how to play in the NFL, and we kind of did it together, so to speak. And he's happy for his career and all the success that he's had. And then Dallas came along, and Dallas for 3 years in Philly, and just he was fun because he was just such a natural athlete, and he was and again, you talk about personalities. He had a bunch of different personalities, and he took a little bit longer to get going, but he was fun because he just embraced it.
I like that. And tell me how you feel like you've seen the tight end position evolve over the years, and where you see it even maybe heading in the future.
It's evolved. It's definitely, you think about it, Tony was the first, Gonzalez was the first quote-unquote basketball player playing tight end. And, I guess you could say Shannon Sharp, or you could say Kellen Winslow Sr., but it kind of took off with Tony, and then Todd Heap. There's a bunch of those guys, and then Antonio Gates obviously does a really good job. It comes in and does it, and so you can see that the bigger, faster, more athletic tight ends versus the prototypical 6'5", 260 extension of the offensive line. And so people have gone more towards pass catchers, but you always need that guy to block at the point of attack, and that's where I think you're lucky when you find a guy like a Cade that can function in both aspects of it. Dallas Goedert was the other one that could do both. Brent Selleck, who I had in Philly. I mean, so there's, just going off the guys that I've had, the guys that could do both. where it's going, it's hard to tell because it's just the way it's really trying to find that 3-down tight end is tough because you're asking a guy to go block a 290-pound, 300-pound defensive end and then turn around and go win on 3rd down versus a safety that's in theory supposed to be a better athlete. So those ones we're all looking for them, and I think we're fortunate right now.
And then now coaching within Liam's scheme, tell me what you like about it for the tight end position, and then just what it's been like to watch him in his first year here have to deal with a lot of injuries and making a lot of adjustments on the fly, and just what that's been like for you guys.
Yeah, I think it's a credit to Liam. I mean, he's got a really, really sharp mind, and he's very creative with it and how he distributes the ball and how he wants to attack it, and he sees it, and he sees the game, and he's got a feel for the game, and especially when he's calling it. As far as the tight ends go, I mean, obviously we've been worked in lately, and it's about, and you could ask him this, but it's how you can contribute. If you can contribute, then we're gonna use you, right? And that's what the tight ends have done a little bit of late, and then obviously, but Liam's he's fun to work for. He's got a smart mind. He's very energetic and very passionate.
And then I know now we have the bye week coming up, and you talked about there's never enough hours in the day as a coach. Well, you got a few extra ones coming up now here this next week. Tell me how you like to use it as a coach, and what the plans are for what you as a position coach tend to look at, because I know it's also the time of both looking ahead to the next game, but also some self-scouting.
Yeah, I'll go back and look and see where we, what have we done better. And I was just coming out of me just talking with those guys, like our daily process, our weekly process, is there anything that we can change or I could change, or, and that's what I told him. I said, if you got any ideas, bring it to me. It's, how do we adjust that so we can you don't want to stay stale, so you always want to improve. So we'll look at that and then, look at our scheme and see what we need to do better at, putting guys in the right spots. Do we have tendencies, are we better doing this than this and this? And then really just, try to catch up on some rest.
Yeah, I'm sure that's always a priority. Needs to be the top one, in my opinion, for y'all's sake. And then how about going against our defense in practice, whether it's all the way back in the off season and training camp? What are the ways that our defense has been helpful for you guys to go against and prepare your guys?
Well, I think anytime you go against Vita, he's just going to make you better. And
it will be painful along the way, but you'll be better.
Levante and Yaya and when all those guys have, because they're so multiple and they do a lot of different things. That's what the challenge is. And then obviously they've got some talent over there. But Vita's a very good player. Levante's Levante's been the one that's really impressed me the most since coming over here. Having gone against him a couple of times, but just watching him every day in practice, he just goes, and he's extremely competitive. Winfield and Antoine the same way. Those guys are extremely competitive, good leaders, always helping people out.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. We really appreciate it. And again, we know you got a lot going on here in the bye week to start getting to in self-scouting, but we definitely appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks to all of you for listening to us here on Buccaneers Total Access. We are brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio.